Alrighty y'all, it is a Fate So Twisted here with a sewing tutorial. How about that? So the first thing I'm going to do is show you the materials here. You're going to need interfacing. I use number 809 Pelon fusible interfacing, and I've got a zipper and a couple of pieces of fabric, one for the inside, one for the outside. Easy peasy. Here is the pattern. Get a piece of printer paper, fold it in half, you know, like you did in school when you were going to tear your paper up. I just keep folding it and using my nails to kind of get the paper loose so I can tear it off there. If you do not follow this part and you ask me where the pattern is, I might just possibly say something to hurt your feelings, because this is the first part of the video, people. Pay attention. Alrighty, so I'm going to tear that in half just neatly as I can. Just going to put the other piece aside. We don't need that one. And this is going to be our pattern piece. Now pay attention here as well, because I did make a mistake. You only need one of each fabric. The one of the outside, one of the inside. Don't know why I said two. I was just ahead of myself. You do need 4 pieces of the fusible interfacing. And the next thing that you are going to do is you are going to press those pieces on. And if you're not sure about interfacing, this type of interfacing has a shiny side and a dull side. The shiny side should go on the back side of the fabric. And I like to iron it on top of the fabric just because that shiny side is there. And I give it a little spritz of water and I just iron it. I don't use the steam of my iron, I just don't like to. So I keep a bottle of water there. And I'm going to iron all of those pieces with a piece of fusible interfacing on the back. And when I'm done, I will show you the next step. And for this part, you really want to keep your iron on a slightly, like a medium-high setting. Don't put it all the way on high, especially when you flip it over to iron on the interfacing side. If it starts to crinkle up, you've kind of lost your stickiness and it just makes a mess. So, and that water does help with that too. So just be sure to not put your iron too high. You kind of have to gauge it yourself. Just test it out before you do this, especially with this orange fabric, because it's that kind of cheap lining cotton fabric and it's really thin, so it wrinkles really easy. The next thing I'm going to do at this stage, do not do this before this, is I am going to clean up those lines just so that this is perfect. Since it's a boxy bag, everything needs to be, you know, lined up really well. And you see I am using a pen, and I switched to a permanent marker there, a fine tip permanent marker. Doesn't matter, you're going to cut those pieces off anyway. If you're more comfortable with like a chalk pencil or a fabric pencil or even a pencil, that's fine, whatever you want to use. I'm just going to clean up my lines here on the first piece, and then I'm going to use that first piece. I'm going to pin it to the subsequent pieces with the interfacing facing each other, and I'm just going to give it a good trim so that each piece matches up. You'll see me do that here, and I will be back when I am done with that part. Alrighty, so the next step is to get your zipper foot out and attach that to your machine. If you don't have a zipper foot, go out and get one now. And I am going to put the right side facing the outside of the zipper for the outside fabric, if that makes sense. And I'm going to sew on the zipper side. I don't usually pin for a smaller project like this. I just line it up, and that's another reason for doing the step before this of cutting everything out nice and neat. And I'm just going to sew on that, and then you're going to see I'm going to take the lining of the bag, and I'm going to put that facing with right sides facing together on the zipper, and I'm going to flip it over and use the line from the first piece that I sewed to match it up, make sure that everything is nice and neato. So I'm going to do that with all sides, and then I will show you the next step. So once you have each side sewn on, the lining and the outside of the bag, you're going to flip it over and it's going to be right sides facing again, with the outside of the zipper and the outside of the bag piece facing each other. And you're just going to do the same thing. Alrighty, when you're done, your bag should look like this, and now you can take that zipper foot off and go ahead and put your regular presser foot back on. And then I'm going to take the bag and I'm going to turn everything out, and then I'm going to turn it with the right sides facing in and the wrong side facing out, and you'll see that here. Once I've got that done, I'm going to lay this bag flat. We're going to put the zipper about halfway up. You don't want to put it all the way up, and you don't want to leave too small of a space, or else it'll be really hard to turn after you get to this point. So I'm going to pin everything down once I've got that zipper centered, and I actually kind of eyeballed it a little bit. I didn't do any measuring. It's such a small bag that it's not really hard to get it right. And you see I have a little loop with a little D-ring on it here, but I actually wasn't happy with that ribbon, so I took some other material that was thick enough, and I'm trying to find a placement for it, and I decided I needed it to be like right up underneath the zipper so that you could kind of hold on to it, and so it was centered when you put it on the keychain. So I'm going to find a placement for that, and then what I'm going to do is go ahead and just stitch that little piece down there just so it doesn't move around. It's really hard to pin. If you try to pin it, you're going to break a needle. I do it every time. So I'm just going to place it under that zipper there, and I'm going to go in, and I think I went off camera with this. I apologize, but yeah, there we are. So I'm just going to stitch that right quick so it stays in place, and then I'm going to stitch down each end of this. You'll see me do that, and then we'll move on to the next step. Alrighty, so there it is, and you can see I've got each end stitched up, and now we're going to start working on making those boxy corners. And the first thing I like to do after I clip the ends of that zipper off is I like to open up those ends right there where the seam allowance is, and I just kind of cut them with my scissors so that they're easier to open up when you get to this step. I was going to try to use my little ruler here with it has angled marks on it, but this is such a small bag that's kind of hard to do. So you're just going to have to flatten everything out and try to match up each corner with the first one that you did. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm taking this and I flattened out the corners and I pinned it down with just one pin and got that pin out of the way. And I've decided where I wanted mine, so I'm going to go ahead and sew that, and from that one you will kind of match it up with the others. This is trial and error. There's no way I can tell you that you need to measure this much or that much. You just have to do it on your own and kind of get it, you know. Some of these bags, when I first started making boxy bags, were really wonky and funky looking because I was just running through it and trying to get it done. But I found that if I take my time and match up all the corners, it usually turns out pretty good. So that is on you. You have to just play around with it and, you know, make sure that you've got everything lined up. You can kind of eyeball it. Not really hard to do, especially with a little bag like this. You see there? Alright, she's all finished. Let's see how she looks. Let's turn it right side out, and we're just gonna poke around those corners and straighten them all up. And you can try to press this. It's a little tricky, but you know, just put your iron on a medium setting and kind of hold it in your hands, and you can press it a little with your fingers too. Just kind of smooth out each edge and give it a little press, and it makes a nice cute little boxy bag. So you can put mask in it, you can put a couple of like alcohol wipes and a plastic bag to put your dirty mask in, and you know, it's just a neat little thing to have on your keychain. And depending on how far in you make those corners is how wide the bag will be. If you want it to be a little flatter, a little more rectangular, just sew tiny little corners. It's all up to you. But I like the way this one turned out. Twisty actually swiped it from me right after the video. So I hope you enjoyed this. Peace. Bye-bye.